Welcome to the Clutch Kitten Gaming Podcast, where I play an indie game for 5 hours and let you know whether or not it's worth your time and money. Hello and welcome everyone. This is James, also known as Clutch Kitten, and I am so excited because today I am not alone. Today I am joined by my good friend Mackenzie, who's also known as Nerdershewrote, if I can actually say it right. Mackenzie, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I am super excited to get to know you better and learn more about, I guess, your gaming journey and your gaming experience. Just to give a little bit of background on you, long story short, I met you through Instagram, but I remember the first time I saw your profile, it was Nerdershewrote. I saw that you did an indie games blog, and at first, I will say I was intimidated by your blog. I was like, man, there's this other person in the space talking about indie games and doing really good articles and all this stuff. But obviously, once I got over that, the only thing that was confusing to me was I was like, what is with this girl's gamer tag? What is with this name? Nerdershewrote. Like, what is that word? What's nerder? And my wife graciously pointed out later on that it was a reference to a very famous TV show, Murder, She Wrote. So
Yes.
I felt very stupid, but
No.
your name made a lot more sense once I figured it out. So I'm super glad you're here.
I'm super glad to be here, and I'm so glad your wife pointed out the wonderful Murder, She Wrote series starring
Yes.
the Queen Angela Lansbury.
Is that like one of your favorite TV shows, or what was the reason for that name?
I just liked the play on words. I grew up on that show, but I don't know if it's my favorite, but I love it, and I've even recorded it. They have it on, I think it's Hallmark Channel. They've
Oh,
been
okay.
playing them every night, like 4 episodes in a row or so. But my husband informed me that the DVR is full, and if you could delete a couple hundred episodes of Murder, She Wrote.
Oh my gosh.
So I said sure. But yeah, it's a great show. And I just liked the name. Yeah, we can get into that later,
Yeah.
probably.
Once I figured out what it was actually about and got over my complete ignorance, it made a lot more sense and it was funny. So yeah, I guess we'll jump right in just to learn more about you. So the first question I have for you is very simple. Who are you today? What kind of defines you as a person, or this can be gaming, non-gaming, whatever you want, but super simple question. Who are you today?
All right, who I am today. I'm a story producer for reality TV shows. I'm a gamer, a superhero in training, a professional napper, and a graphic novel bookworm.
I like all of these things. Okay, so maybe we should pick these apart. So you're a story producer for reality TV. What are some shows that you work on?
Sure. Some shows are Ride with Norman Reedus for AMC. I've done Dual Survival on Discovery, Black Ink Crew for VH1.
Wow.
Yeah.
What got you into that? Like, that seems like such a cool job, and I don't know. Hopefully it's cool for you, but
It's pretty cool. I can't imagine doing a traditional 9 to 5,
mhm.
but I got into it because in grad school, I interned for a TV show in New York called The Joy Behar Show. It was
Okay.
for HLN, which is the sister network to CNN. And Joy Behar is the comedian from The View.
Okay.
So she had her own show at night. So I interned for them. And after I graduated, they brought me in for an interview and said, you had 1 week to learn the job, or we're getting someone with experience.
Oh my gosh.
So I learned the job, and I was on the show until it was canceled.
Wow. Was that super intimidating when they said that? Was it like, this is my shot? Like,
Yeah, it was super intimidating because it was, I had to take this long train ride into the city, and this is my big interview for my first real job, and the interview couldn't have been more than 5 minutes long.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really just like, just learn it or that this is it. Like, so, but luckily during my internship, I really worked hard and became close with the producers who kind of vouched for me. And they're like,
Hmm.
give this girl a chance. You're not going to be disappointed. So they were not disappointed.
Well, you obviously have done something successful because you're still
I'm
story
still going.
producing and
Yeah.
doing all that sort of stuff. That's
Yeah.
cool. I know a while back you posted some stories on Instagram about an episode that you had done some story producing for, or whatever the correct terminology is. And that was, I don't know, I feel like that would be so cool seeing something on TV and being like, I was a part of that. I helped with the narrative of that or whatever it is. So
Yeah. It's really fulfilling and in a lot of ways. And it's still cool to see your name in the credits, I have to say.
I bet that's super cool. So superhero in training, what superhero are you in training to be?
Ooh, good question. I haven't come up with my alter ego yet. Which
Okay.
is probably a good thing because I don't know if I should tell people because then my
Oh,
whole
okay.
cover's blown.
A secret okay, so if you we don't want to blow your cover, so who is your favorite superhero apart from yourself then?
Ooh, it changes all the time, but I think currently it's got to be Captain Marvel with the movie
I
that
haven't
came
seen that
out.
movie.
Oh, you got to
I
see
haven't
it.
seen it yet. No, how was it? Obviously good.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. It's as a female, I've been waiting for this my whole life. I thought I got it with Wonder Woman when that came out, and Gal Gadot was wonderful. She did a
Yeah,
great portrayal, and I loved that movie. But then Captain Marvel came out, and that blew my mind even more. She
nice.
just, I won't give any spoilers, but she's not sexualized. She wears the same uniform the men wear.
Yeah. I feel like you don't see that very often in all these sort of things in media, in games, and in movies. So that's super cool to hear.
She's super badass, and I like her comedy too. She's just got this dry sense of humor. It's super badass, so I like it.
Maybe I need to watch that one then. Okay. So I'm guessing you've gone to see Endgame and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, I've seen it twice. I'm definitely
Oh
going to
my
be seeing
gosh.
it a third time.
For someone who hasn't seen Endgame, or I haven't seen many Avengers movies in a while, what's your recommendation as like lead up to that movie?
Oh wow.
Or okay, like basic like skeleton crew lead up. I've seen some Captain America, some Iron Man.
Okay.
I've seen some Thor. Like I've seen some both the Guardians of the Galaxy. I've seen some of those movies on the
Oh,
exterior in my
okay.
mind, but not like the combination movies.
Okay, you'll definitely. Have you seen Winter Soldier?
I can't remember.
You
Maybe.
might want to watch that. You need to see. Let me think. Any of the Avenger movies when they're all together. You need to
Okay.
watch both of those. So Civil War, like Avengers, and then Avengers Civil War. You should watch those. Spider Man. Have you seen that one?
Not the new one. I've seen all the old ones.
Oh, you gotta see the new one. That's the one
I
that.
know. That's Homecoming, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
I have
yeah, Homecoming. Yeah. And you want to watch the post credit scene. I think it's either the end of the movie or the post credits of Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay. I think I've seen part of that movie, but not I don't know if I saw the post-credit scene for it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that'll explain some things. And you've seen Infinity Wars, right?
No.
Oh.
I haven't kept up with them for it feels like years.
All right. So
So,
you definitely want to watch Infinity War before you see Endgame because it's all the same. That's tracking that same story.
okay. So, no spoilers at all, but how satisfied are you with the way things wrapped up in Endgame? Like on a scale of 1 to 10 as someone who works on stories in that kind of industry, how did you feel about it?
I would say an 11. I'm satisfied.
Oh my word. Very happy then.
I've
Okay.
seen I've seen the Russo brothers do some interviews where they've talked about, I think, like 500 or 900 hours of film they shot for these movies for Endgame and Infinity War. And to cut all that down to
Yeah.
a 3-hour movie, which is a long movie, I know is very hard. There's a
Yeah.
ton of storylines you're tracking, and I feel like, and then the story in Endgame is it can be a little complicated without giving
Mhm.
anything away, but I feel like they did it in a very easy to track, I would say, and
Yeah.
I don't know, you just followed everything. Of course, there's moments where I'm like, oh, I wish there was more of this, or I wish I saw more of this character, but I understand why we can't do those things. There's just not enough.
Yeah.
So I thought they did a good job.
Well, maybe I need to actually watch those films and see Endgame because just like what you said, I've heard lots of good things about that movie. So
Yes, I highly
I
recommend it.
guess I need to do that. Okay. So the last thing you said was graphic novel connoisseur or something like
Yeah,
that.
Bookworm.
Bookworm, graphic novel bookworm. That's better. What are some of your favorite graphic novels? Like what got you into those, and what are some of your favorites?
I don't recall what got me into them. I just have always been drawn to them. I remember as a kid, on Sundays, my dad would take all of us to the local comic book shop. So I was picking up comics very young and then revisited them in my adulthood. But Preacher is probably my favorite graphic novel series.
The Preacher. I haven't read that one. What's that about?
Oh, it's how do I describe this? It's very deplorable. Basically, this guy who's a preacher, he's kind of given up on his faith. He's drinking himself silly every
Mhm.
night, getting in bar fights and stuff. And then something happens to him where has the power, he has the word of God, so he can command you to do anything. So if he tells you to go fuck yourself, you will literally go fuck yourself.
Okay.
And he's on a mission to find God because he's missing.
Huh.
So,
Interesting. Do you know who does that? Who writes it?
all right. So Garth Ennis, he's the writer, and then there's all kinds. Let's see, who's our main artist though? Garth Ennis is always like the guy behind all this, and then
Okay.
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen, really?
He has nothing to do with the comics, but he was a super fan, or is a super fan,
Mhm.
and for years has been trying to get it made into a show and finally succeeded. So
Really?
it's actually now a show on AMC if you want to check it out.
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And it does take some liberties from the comics.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of things that they do that honors it. You can see like straight up like panels from the comics are played out in the show.
That's super cool.
It's great, and I can't believe it's on television because if you do read the series, there's just some really terrible things that happen.
I'm curious, have you ever been part of a show where you've had to go from a book or a graphic novel or anything like that to the screen, like help write story for that?
No, I wish.
What do you think, because obviously people complain a lot about like, oh, the book is way better than the movie or
Mhm.
vice versa, and what would be some of the challenges there as someone who's actually in the midst of that sort of writing?
Hmm. At least in my industry, there's a lot of voices. So it's
Mm,
when I make an episode with my editor, that first version, no one's ever going to see that. Like the public will never see that. So once I do something, then my supervisor has ideas. Then the executive producers will have ideas. And our client, which is the network, has ideas. So everyone's has input, and you're trying to honor everyone's creative direction.
gotcha.
So I think there's a lot of voices that go into these decisions, and people want to put their stamp on it.
That would be super tough, and I'm sure with a lot of these movie or book adaptations, my assumption would be that they're not going into it saying, "Okay, we're going to make this completely different from the book or completely change this and this and this." But
Yeah,
that probably just happens because of all these creative people putting into the script and how the movie is going to be laid out, and just the medium is also incredibly different. So I'm sure that's a
absolutely.
super tough thing.
And you're trying to, you only have a certain amount of time to tell a story, so you need to streamline it as best you can. So that's why the books usually are better than movies or shows because you have 600 pages to tell a story,
Yeah,
which takes you days and days and days to read. But if you only have 2 hours to tell the whole thing, it's just there's just not enough time. So you have to streamline it, and unfortunately lose some of those your favorite parts along the way.
yeah, that would be tough. So, do you also read superhero graphic novels as well, or mainly just other sorts of stories?
I would say I don't actually. I read a lot of these indie, I guess you would call them, graphic novels.
Gotcha.
I find the superhero comics to be very intimidating because there's
Hmm.
so many universes and it's always evolving and changing, so it's hard to just jump right in. But there's a few that I'll read, like if like for Winter Captain America, Winter Soldier. I read that before going to see the movie just to get an idea of what to expect, maybe, even though it's not exactly the same. But
Hmm.
things like that I'll dabble in, but usually other stuff I'll go for.
Yeah, I first got into some graphic novels like 3 or 4 years ago. I worked at a bookstore for a summer, and I had a friend tell me about Saga, and that like pulled me into wanting to read more and more graphic novels. I don't know if you've read Saga, but that's just I don't know, it's such a fun series to read and
Yeah,
beautiful illustrations and all that sort of stuff, but that's kind of
absolutely.
opened the floodgates to all these different titles. So it's cool hearing about a series that you really enjoy as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll move back now to that second thing you said regarding gaming, which is probably why a lot of people are here. Where did your gaming journey start, Mackenzie, and how has it kind of brought you to where you're at currently?
Right. So I am the youngest of four. So growing up, we've had, pretty much all the gaming systems. So I grew up on NES and Atari, and I always was just trying to catch up and hang out with my siblings who were gamers. So
Yeah.
I quickly got into gaming very young. And then even, I think one of my most memorable gifts I ever got as a kid was I forget which birthday it was, but very young, I got the Sega and
Ooh,
a tiny tube TV, and it was like, "This is your system."
heck yeah.
So I took the Sega and the TV and put it in my room, and my parents never saw me again. Yeah, so I just grew up with gaming. And throughout high school, I gamed, but I didn't really. My closest friends knew about it, but it
Mhm.
wasn't exactly cool at the time.
Yes, I
So
understand that.
I guess a closeted gamer.
If someone came up to you, like a popular person in high school, and asked you if you were a gamer, what would you say in that instance?
Oh,
Would you like try and dodge around the question or what?
absolutely. Or I'd probably just be like, why are you talking to me? You're way more popular than I am."
Fair point.
Yeah, I was super awkward in high school. I'm still super awkward, but I'm not in high school anymore. Um, yeah, so then in college, I got even more into gaming. I started including gaming, and I went to school for communication and studied mass media and its influence on society. So I would talk a lot about gaming because my professors tended to use the same examples over and over. Like they only knew about Grand Theft Auto, and that was the only example they would ever. There are other games out there.
Oh my. Yeah.
So I even in grad school they have like this symposium that they host for the whole campus, and you're
Mhm.
supposed to present your research. So I presented this project I did called Smack My Bitch Up.
Okay.
which was basically poking holes, talking about how it's not just video games that can cause violence. There's
Mm,
other factors in our society and our language
yeah.
that can lead to violence. And so I rolled in this TV and I hooked up my Wii and I put on, I don't know if you played the game Mad World.
No, but I've heard of it.
So that blew the professors' minds because they were like, "What is this? It's not Grand Theft Auto."
Oh my.
But it was cool to see their reaction and how engaging that game was because you're like physically doing the violence. It's not just you're pressing a button, you're like actually flipping people and stuff. So it was cool to teach them something new.
Yeah.
And then I've always wanted to be in games. It's just I haven't found a way. And then the TV thing kind of just happened for me, but I always wanted to get into the gaming industry somehow. So even on that my very first job, I was emailing people that worked on. I don't know if you remember the network G4
Oh, very vaguely. Yeah,
and
very vaguely.
that show with Kevin Piera. I was trying to email people that worked on that show and be like, "Hey, how can I get on there?" And it's always been something I've wanted to do. And around 2015, I guess, I finally got serious about it.
Hmm.
And I had been keeping a list of names I would come up with for whatever brand of whatever it is I was going to do. And I was working on a show, and they were like, it came out that I want to do a website about games and everything. And they were like, well, what are your ideas? So I rattled off a bunch of names from my list, and they were like, no. And then my EP was like, that's it? Like, you don't have any other ones? I'm like, well, there's this one more, but I don't know what people will think. And
Yeah.
he's like, what is it? And I was like, Nerdershewrote. He's like, why didn't you just say that first?
It's perfect.
I was like, oh, and the other producers was like, yeah, definitely. Like, why are you not doing this? So I went home that night and got the social medias set up for it and bought the URL and got really
Yeah.
excited about it, but I still didn't know what it was going to be yet. So
Hmm.
it didn't really take shape until like September of last year.
Well, that's still cool though. That you've been thinking about it for so long and that it's been such an interest to you. So,
Yeah. It's always been on my mind. I just didn't know how I would fit into the whole gaming world, but now that I've started writing reviews and stuff, I'm really immersing myself into it.
yeah, and I think it's also cool hearing about your what you did in school as well, and how you were really trying to inform your professors at the time about gaming and all these things that might be misconceptions. And I think you're probably doing that some now as well with the blog. And I don't know, that's such a cool thing, and it's something that's needed because even though maybe people who aren't gamers, even though they might not be reading your blog, it's still important to have that information out there and be informing people about what games actually are, and it's not just all Grand Theft Auto and
Yeah,
all this other sort of stuff. But
absolutely.
so next question I had was, what has been one of the most influential games or series for you? And it can be either indie or AAA, and which one is it and how has it changed who you are as a person?
Mm. I'm going to go with indie, and the game that was probably the most influential for me and probably what got me really into indies is Journey.
I knew it.
You knew it.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Um, I went into Journey not knowing a thing about it. I just saw it on the PlayStation Store. I was like, cool, let's just try something new. And quickly just became immersed in it. I played it in one sitting. And I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it yet, but it was just a really emotional experience for me that I wasn't expecting. And it was not the first time, but it was one of the most powerful times where a game struck me that way. And the thing about Journey is there's no words. There's no all told through music and action. And I just thought that was so meaningful and powerful that this game was able to convey all these messages that way. And I played it that one time, and it was so powerful to me that I couldn't go back. Like, it's really hard to open yourself up and go experience those feelings again.
Yeah.
Even though it's my most favorite game, I've actually only played it one time.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's hard to go back, and you probably can't recreate that experience. It's not gonna be the same thing again
Right.
if you go back.
Right. There's been games that have come out since that I'm like, "Oh, that reminds me of Journey. I wanna give it a shot." And I think I unfairly to them, I put this expectation that it's gonna, like, change my life,
Yeah.
and sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but it I just really love that game. I bought the soundtrack immediately and was listening to it every morning on my train rides, and
When I think we talked about this months ago or something, but I you had mentioned Journey as being one of your favorite indies, and I still have yet to play that one, and I need to, is I've had it on my list, and you've mentioned it, and I think it'll be super awesome when I do get to that one because I love those indies that become experiences and not just it's not
yeah,
just about a game, but it's about something more.
it really is, and it's so beautiful, and
Mhm.
it it looks deceivingly simple, but it's just I don't know, you just have to experience it. It's one of those things, and I think it also depends on what you've been through in your life
Yeah.
and where you're at in your life because it I think it'll speak to different people in different ways. And
Yeah.
to me, it was really powerful, and I do wanna go back and play it now that I have experienced more of the world, but
Mhm.
I know, like, once I get in it, I'm gonna need, like, a day. I'm gonna
Just
need
a
a day to
process.
yeah. But it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's something that whenever I talk to my family or talk to friends who aren't gamers, that's something I always want to try and convey, or I want them to be able to just play a game like What Remains of Edith Finch. I want to just sit them down and say, okay, play this. And you might understand a little bit of where I'm coming from and why I'm so excited about these games because to most people, it's like games are just Grand Theft Auto or Super Mario. And although those are great games, it's hard for some people who aren't gamers to realize that games can be emotional and experiences that really are life changing. So I think that's cool hearing about your experience with Journey. I think I had maybe a similar sort of thing with What Remains of Edith Finch and a few others. And it's just like
Yeah,
these games that bring you to tears almost. And yeah, those are incredible experiences.
absolutely, yeah. And what Edith Finch, like, just so incredible that it tells so many different stories in one
Yeah.
game, and every story, like, each person's story is a different game mechanic, and it's just super engaging in so many ways. I don't know. They just explore a lot in just a little bit of time.
I think it's interesting too because you mentioned that journey might affect people in different ways depending on experience. And I don't know the story for Journey, but that's one thing with What Remains of Edith Finch, where no matter who you are, I feel like there's something that you can relate to
Yeah,
in that story because there are so many characters and so many different stories that are
yeah,
explored. And it's like
yeah.
it's dealing with all of these different things that I'm sure has touched, like one of those things has probably touched you in some way. So it's kind
Right.
of easy to relate to.
Absolutely.
So, Mackenzie, what is one genre that you can't seem to get good at?
Oh boy.
Because beyond this one genre, you're obviously an incredibly talented gamer. So what's the one weakness? What's your Achilles heel?
Oh my gosh. Well, two of them. I would say battle royale games
Okay.
and first person games.
Hmm.
Battle royale, I'm not fast enough. I'm not accurate enough. And it's also just really stressful for me to engage in those games because it's a competition and I
Mhm.
I want to win. So, and I'm a very competitive person, so not being good at a battle royale is no bueno for me. So, And I need a game with story, so there's not really a lot of story with just shooting at people.
Hmm.
So I find it hard to engage. And then first person games, I just honestly I just get motion sickness.
Yeah.
So it's pretty terrible though because I miss out on a lot of great games because I can't like I physically cannot play them.
Yeah.
And I find that ones that I really do want to play because I know the story's going to be great, I can play in like 15-minute increments before I'm like, all right, I need to lay down.
What's been one of those that stands out as like you had to go through it very, very slowly because of that, but you had to play it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know actually. I didn't play all the way through yet, but there was one that I tested at PAX East
Hmm.
2018 called Close to the Sun, and I looked at it, but the art looked really beautiful. So I tested it and they had basically two levels to try. And I got through one. I was like, oh, okay. Like it was really great, but I'm feeling awful. And then the developers were like, oh, here, try the next one. And I didn't want to hurt their feelings.
Oh,
So I was like, all right, I'll just try and get through it. So I
yeah.
did. And I'm glad I did because the game was really wonderful. But by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I gotta go like lie down somewhere.
Oh no. You guys don't understand. This is making me sick.
It's not
Yeah, that's
you,
tough.
it's me.
It's not your game. So have you tried VR at all? Just out of curiosity?
Yeah, and I'm super fine with it. Like,
Interesting.
if I'm sitting down using VR, I'm completely fine. I love it.
Hmm.
I think every time I try a new VR game, I'm just blown away. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe this is what technology is doing now. But if I'm standing up, I'm like immediately feel like I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah, it's crazy how everyone's wired so differently with all that sort of stuff.
Completely. Because I think too, it's like if my character is running, but I know I'm standing still, it like I think it messes with my brain. It's like,
Yeah.
wait,
Why
am I
am I
running?
not moving?
Where am I?
I tried out VR at a friend's house for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I was just so impressed by what it's like in there. It's crazy. I played Super Hot in VR. I don't know if you've played
Oh
that one.
yeah,
Yeah, that felt so cool. It's like you're just this ninja and doing all this stuff, and you're like ducking down, trying to dodge
yeah,
all the bullets, and I thought that was just incredible.
yeah. That one's a really wonderful game. And then there's also VR games that have stories too. Like
Yeah,
I tried Moss, but that's a wonderful one.
that's with
Uh,
the little mouse. Is that correct?
yeah,
Okay, I heard really good things about that.
yeah. Really loved that one. And Ghost Giant just came out too, so I'm going to be exploring that one soon.
Have you played Astrobot?
No, but I've heard that one's great.
Yeah, I've heard like so many amazing things about that. But it's just for PSVR. Do you have PSVR? Is that what you use
Yeah,
or okay,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha. But your PlayStation still in the hospital in the sick bay?
He's still sick. I
Oh
just
no.
PlayStation or Sony just sent me the FedEx box, so I will be sending the little guy out today.
Well, at least you have your Switch to keep you company while your PS4 is away. So
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
guess that's good. All right,
yeah.
so kind of moving on. What would you say is one of the most important you kind of just answered this, but feel free to talk more about it. What is one of the most important aspects of a game for you, and why is it important?
Narrative, which I'm sure you guessed, but a
Hmm.
narrative is definitely the most important aspect for me. Any way that I can get my hands on a good story, I'll do it, whether it's through a book or a graphic novel, movie, TV show, or a game. So, any way I can get my hands on a story. And I think because I'm a story producer, I am just really drawn to that and learning new ways to tell similar themes or meet new characters that have gone through experiences that maybe I haven't gone through yet,
Hmm.
learning about that. I just really love narrative. I love playing out games. Um, the thing about indies is I can usually do it in a sitting.
Yeah.
AAA games, I really need to just take a weekend off because I need to play it. Like, I love the story and I just can't wait to find out what happens. So I just sit there and play. It's pretty terrible, but I'll play for like 8 hours straight, take a break, go back at it, like go all night playing because I just need to know what happens.
Yeah, totally. What's a game with an amazing narrative that kind of stands out to you that you've played recently?
Ooh. Well, it's not indie, but
That's
uh,
okay.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, I've seen that you've been playing a lot of that. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts.
Gosh, well, I don't want to give anything away on that either, but I just am blown away by what they did with the story. There's
Mm,
so much, like, there's just so much. And even though I finished the game, there's still a lot to be done in it and a lot of story that's out there for me to discover.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was just super ugly crying by the end of it.
So, question for you: does your husband play games very often, or is he? That's not a hobby for him.
Oh
I can't
no,
remember.
he's a gamer as well, and to the point where when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, we both were like, we need to play it. So we got an extra PlayStation system,
Nice.
took the TV that's normally in our bedroom and brought it out to the living room so we could play together but separately.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to places where you might have been further in the story and he wasn't there yet, and it's like, no, don't show me
Oh
this story
yeah.
beat or whatever?
He ended up taking the TV that faced away from him because he just has more time to play than I do. So he would be like, way ahead, and I'm like, oh my god, no, I don't want to know. So I would sit in the same room playing with him, but not facing him or his TV.
Gotcha.
And but it was really fun because he would. There's all like these stranger encounters in the game, so
Hmm.
like random things will happen, and something will happen to him that haven't happened to me yet, or vice versa. Like, did you get to that pig farm yet? And he's like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh my god, you got to ride up there and go meet these people.
My wife is she's not a big gamer. She didn't really grow up with that sort of stuff, but recently when she got into Stardew Valley, it's been funny because we've been like ever since she got into that and started her own farm, we've been vying for the time on the Switch. I'll come home and she's been making her farm a beautiful place and working on it while I've been away at work and she's been off work or whatever. And
Yeah,
she has now passed me up in time played on that game. So it's kind of funny having that experience now since she really wasn't much of a gamer before, but she also sometimes watches when I play indie games because of the story aspect. She's very similar in the sense that she likes when I play those games that have more of a narrative that she can follow along with, and it's not just about the mechanical play or something like that.
right. No, I think that's amazing that she's being exposed to this whole other world of storytelling. So if that's
Yeah,
something she craves, it's great that she's even if she's just watching you play the game, she's still participating in a way with it.
yeah. And the reason I originally asked you about your husband is because I was just imagining you like bawling over playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and then him not being a gamer and it's like, why are you crying
Oh,
over this cowboy game? What is going on? But he understands. So
when I played The Last Guardian, that was another one that I was just a wreck at the end. Just the ugliest cry I think I've ever had. And he hadn't really watched me play much of that game, and he had come home right when I finished it. So I'm sitting there just bawling my brains out. And he's like, he comes to the door, he's like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" I'm like, "What? I just finished my game." And so he
That's
like runs
hilarious.
and grabs me tissues, and he has like no idea how to console me because he doesn't know what happened in the game. Like, just
That's
leave me alone.
hilarious. I like it. So we've come now to the hardest question of the podcast.
Oh
This is
god.
where this is where you have to create your dream mashup game. And I've added one category on there, but you can take it out if you want. So you are supposed to give us a character, a weapon, which it can also be an item if you want it to be a non-violent game. There can be a location, a genre, and if you want, add in a soundtrack or a style of soundtrack that you like, because I know that you collect vinyl, like gaming vinyl soundtracks. So if you want to add that in, you can.
Okay. I've thought about this all week. This is the
It's a
hardest
hard,
question.
yeah, it's a hard question.
The hardest question of my life. All right. So for character, this was probably the hardest one to choose because I really wanted a strong female character. And I'm going to go with Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
She's super duper badass. Like, she just doesn't take anyone's shit. And she'll just do everything herself. And she's very passionate at the same time. If girlfriend gets shot, she keeps going. Like,
That's right. There we go.
amazing. So Sadie Adler, and the weapon that I'll give her is the Blades of Chaos from God of War. The ones with like on the chains where he's like can spin them around.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
So it would just be really amazing to see her with those. That alone would be an amazing game.
Yeah.
And location, this was really hard because I would love to explore the Red Dead Redemption world, but I don't want to use that because I'm using Sadie. And then my other favorite world is God of War, but I don't want to use that either because I'm using the weapon.
Yeah.
So I ended up going with the world from Final Fantasy VIII because that was a really important game for me in high school. That was like the first game I really played to completion, like did everything in the game, got all the Guardian forces, like everything. And there was just a lot to discover there. And there's various lands from deserts to futuristic cities and everything.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to put Sadie with the Blades of Chaos in there. And then genre, action adventure. And then for soundtrack, I'm gonna go with Journey.
Journey soundtrack. I wonder what sort of experience this all would turn into, but that sounds super awesome. So action, you said action adventure for the genre.
Yeah.
What do you define as action adventure for this game? Like, I feel like that's such a broad genre, like which is totally fine, but what do you imagine this game looking like from just the gameplay experience?
Probably, similar to that of a God of War and Red Dead Redemption, where it's kind of open world, well, they are open world, but where you can control your character, third person, and you can enter battles if you want to, or if you want to go do this other thing, you can go do that.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, now that you've gone through this exercise, Mackenzie, you can take this amazing game, and when you finally burst into the game industry, into working at a company or whatever it looks like for you, you can present this game and credit me as the inspiration, and there we go. We're set. When this game eventually comes out.
I feel like I'll be the only one playing it, but I'll credit.
I appreciate it. That's all that matters. Oh my. Okay. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about indie games specifically and a little bit more about your blog if you're interested. You obviously started this blog, you said September of last year. Is that when you really started going with it?
Yeah, I think it was August or September of last year. I went live with it.
Okay.
But I started it earlier, but just had a lot of false starts with what my focus was going to be because it was indie games at first.
That comes to a great question. So why did you choose indie games specifically? Because you obviously play AAA as well, but what made you want to focus on that?
Well, for my website, I knew I wanted to do something gaming related, and at first it's really easy to just be like, I'm going to do games and all things nerdy.
Yeah.
But then you realize you're one person and every day there's more and more news coming out, and it's
Oh my
just
gosh.
physically impossible with a full-time job to keep up.
Yeah.
So it was when I was at PAX East 2018. I was at the Indie Mega booth in line. I forget which game it was, but I was standing there and I realized this is what I should be doing. I should be focusing on indie games. Every time I come to this event, I spend the entire time with the indie games. And I
Yeah.
love them, and I feel like not a lot of people talk about them or play them enough. And there's just so many coming out every week that you're just inundated with all of these new titles. So why not introduce people to some that I enjoy?
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up focusing on indies.
That's super cool. I feel the exact same way. There's just, especially on PC, but everywhere on
Yeah,
Switch and PS4 and all that sort of stuff, there's just, it feels like hundreds of indie games come out each week. And even though like probably 70 of them are complete garbage, there's some amazing gems in the rough. And I don't know, there's these experiences and games which are so amazing but are so easy to overlook because there's these AAA games that are obviously going to be good. They come out and people just jump towards those. But I think that's great that you've started blogging about these and writing articles and just trying to bring about awareness of them. So that's super cool.
absolutely. Yeah, and I just love that there's all these stories. A lot of these indies are pretty short.
Hmm.
About 4 hours or so gameplay. So the amount of stories that you can experience in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You'll have, AAA titles, they're great, but they take like what, 70 or more hours of your time
Yeah.
to put into this game. It's an indie, you can sit there and you can do it in the morning and still have your whole weekend.
That's true. What would you say has been the most enjoyable and the most challenging part of blogging for you or writing about games specifically?
I think for enjoyable, one of the best things has been getting a chance to talk to the developers.
Yeah.
A AAA title, I can't imagine someone's gonna accept a call from me. Just little old me. But with these developers, I mean, a lot of times it's just one person that makes the game or a very small team, so they're
Yeah.
accessible, and I'm able to get a different perspective on the game that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Hmm.
They chose this art style or color palette, or why they went with this music choice, how they even came up with the idea for the game. All those things I get to learn about. And it just makes it an even more special experience because with indies it's kind of an intimate experience.
Hmm.
When I'm sitting there crying at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, the credits are rolling by, but it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. I couldn't even tell you, a handful of those people. But with indie games, you can see who made the game. Like you
Hmm.
know who they are. And it's like it's as if your friend was doing something and you went and supported them. It kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
And another thing that I do love about blogging about games is the feedback I've gotten from non-gamers. I've had a lot of people message me that don't consider themselves gamers and have picked up a game based on my recommendation.
That's awesome.
And to me, that's amazing that I'm getting people into it. And just also realizing there's a power to your words, that people will listen and they will try something if you recommend it. That's pretty amazing. So I think those are the best parts about what I'm doing right now. And I would say the most challenging part of it all is really just time.
Yeah.
My job, I have crazy hours, so I really, I get up at 6:30 and I don't come home until earliest 9 o'clock at night.
Sheesh. That's not a lot of time.
Yeah,
Or
that's
leftover. That's not a lot of time.
yeah, there really isn't. So I really only have the weekends to play a game and then write about it. And it's hard to do it every weekend because you want to
Yeah.
also see your family and friends, or you have errands and laundry to do.
Real life stuff too.
real
Yeah.
life stuff. So I think the hardest part is just finding the time to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy when I do get to do it.
It's cool hearing about your experience because I can relate to a lot of those things with starting up the podcast, and definitely can relate to the difficulty of time
Yeah.
and also the all of the enjoyable things about reviewing and looking at indie games. I think you saying that it was an intimate experience kind of that was a great way to describe it, because thinking about a lot of the games I've looked at, it's like, yeah, it was made by one person or two people, or even maybe a team of 12 people, but that's still such a small team compared to these huge AAA games. And I remember one game in particular, Mana Spark. I looked at it a few months ago, I think, and that was the first time with one of my reviews where I think I said basically not to get it because it had some good things to it, but it wasn't really that great of a game. But that
Mhm.
was the first time where I was like, I felt bad saying that because these
Yeah,
two guys, it was made by two guys, and they either quit or fired or were fired from their previous development job at a bigger company and decided to do their own thing because they were passionate about it. And I was like, sure, there's not going to be a ton of people reading my review on this, but I still felt bad because it's like they've poured a lot of themselves into this game.
absolutely.
And I feel bad saying that it's not good. I need to be objective on it, but it's like, man, I respect them for going and doing something like this and pursuing their dream of being being developers. So it definitely is an intimate experience in that sort of sense.
I totally agree that that can be one of the challenges is being objective with reviews.
Yeah.
And for me, I tend to be I'm not just gonna pick up any indie game and review it. I'm gonna
Mhm.
review ones that by watching the trailer, I'm like, "Yeah, this one's for me. I'm gonna like it." So I go into it with a more positive attitude, but
Mhm.
I do feel bad when it's like, "Oh, it didn't strike me the way I thought it was going to." And, just reiterating what you were saying is just like, yeah, they've poured their life into this game. A lot of these people pour their savings into it. I met a developer at PAX this year that told me him and his brother put every dime they have in their savings in this game. So if it doesn't work, that's it. Like
Yeah.
they have nothing. So it's really you want to support them, you want to be there for them, but there's also like this thing if you don't connect with the game, you don't connect with it.
Yeah, I completely understand. I'm similar with picking games. Usually I don't go into a game being like, this is complete shit. I want
Yeah.
to review this so I can trash on it, because
Yeah,
that's no fun for anyone. Like it's I don't want to feel like a jerk after I've done a review. There's
totally.
just it's like I want to be at least somewhat excited when I go into it. So I'm with you there. That's But then it's like if a game turns out to not be what you expected it, it's like,
Yeah,
dang it, I have to be I
yeah.
have to be a little bit more harsh with this.
I imagine it's different if we were getting paid for our
Yes.
reviews, but I mean, we're just doing this as a hobby right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna pick out games that we were gonna play anyway.
And I mean that's part of it too for I think both of us, because just like a lot of these indie developers are putting all of their savings and a lot of their time into these projects they're doing. For me, I'm not putting all of my money and whatever into the podcast, but it takes time, it takes money, and you're right, I'm not being paid for what I do, and it's like I think on that level, I can relate to a lot of these developers in the sense that it's like I'm doing the podcast because I care about it and because it's a passion of mine. And so
Right.
it's like you want to support those people because they're doing a very similar thing.
Right. Like this is their livelihood. If
Yeah.
it doesn't work, then what's next, you know?
Yeah. So how would you say your career as a story producer, how has that affected how you look at games, or has it?
It has, in a few ways. I would say one of the biggest things for me is I have hours and hours of footage to look at for an
Mhm.
episode, and that's broken down by scenes. So if I have 3 hours of footage for what will inevitably be a 5-minute scene, I have to figure out what's the story being told and how to navigate that. And there's a lot of possibilities there. So some scenes it's pretty straightforward, and others it's I don't know what to do with them. With games, what I'll do is if I'm stuck, I will go home and I'll play a game because there's always a solution. And
Hmm.
there's something about how my mind works with that where, all right, if I can just get through this level, then I can get on to the next thing. And there's always a way out. There's always something, there's always a way to get through it. So it kind of makes me clear my head, and then I can go back to that footage that I need to figure out. I'm like, oh, here we go. I see the solution now. I see the path to get to the next thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of cool that games have helped you in that way. Kind of maybe it's like resetting your mind, saying, "Okay, I can do this. There's probably a solution somewhere for this."
Yeah, there's always there's no matter what the footage is, some producers will like complain that nothing happened or the field messed up or whatever, and it's like no, there's always a solution. You just have to step back and think about it, and games allow me to do that because there's so
Yeah.
many ways to tell stories. I'm like, all right, if they're telling the story this way, how can I do it? Even though the shows I work on do not share the same themes at all.
Yeah.
But somehow it lets me reset my mind and I can see it more clearly.
Yeah. That's super cool. How do you currently feel about the indie scene, the indie game scene? Obviously, you've been very saturated in that scene for the past at least year, basically, if
Yeah.
not more. What are your thoughts on it and kind of the direction it's taking?
I think it's just amazing right now. Nintendo
Hmm.
has the indies now, and I feel like they're investing a lot of time and effort into showcasing indie games on the Switch. And I think, you know, a lot of people know about Steam and you can look up indie games on there, but there's just so many. It's so hard to find one, know where to begin because there's just so many, which is great. And I love that people are putting their stuff out there.
Hmm.
But I also love that like Nintendo has their stuff now where you're able to have access to it where, not everyone's a PC gamer. I wasn't a PC gamer. I only got into it because I wanted access to more indies specifically. But not a lot of people are like that. So some people have the Switch for Mario or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
realizing, oh my god, what is this Katana Zero? This looks bad.
Yes.
So I think in that sense, it's really wonderful. And I've been to PAX East 3 years in a row now,
Hmm.
and going each time, I'm seeing just the growth in what people are presenting in their games. The graphics are getting better, the storytelling is getting better. There's games that explore different themes but are doing it in completely different ways. Like I just played this game on my mobile device. uh,
On the old mobile, yeah.
on the old mobile. If I don't know if you had heard of those. It's like a short called G30, this game. And G30 is about someone that's experiencing memory loss, but it's all just puzzles. It's just putting together a puzzle. I played another game at PAX that's also about memory loss, but it's a first person perspective and you're going through these memories and trying to piece things together. So it's like exploring the same theme, but in two totally, completely different ways on different platforms. And I just think that's something that's really special that indies are able to do.
I completely agree with you. I think the Switch has been such a great platform for all of these indie titles. And getting the Switch, when I originally got it, I was like, it can't be as awesome as people say, but just the ability to take it on the go and play it around the house doesn't mean I have to be at my desk playing indies if I want to play them. It's great that they've allowed so many indies into that store. And there's times even with the Nintendo store where I go on there and it's like there are a ton of games on here and it's a little bit overwhelming. It's not as bad as Steam, but it's awesome because so many of those are indies and maybe kind of like what you're saying, maybe someone's been a Nintendo gamer their whole life and that's the only console they get.
Right.
Before, they probably haven't really had much experience with indie titles, but Nintendo has kind of allowed access to that now, and it's such a great opportunity for those people to experience something new.
Absolutely. And like even on PlayStation Plus, people have access now. They're getting indies for free. Like this month, it's What Remains of Edith Finch.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so they probably, if there's someone that doesn't explore indie games, they probably wouldn't have spent the money on it. But now that it's free for them, they're like, oh, cool, let me try this thing out. And maybe that exposes them to a whole new world or a new style of games that they probably wouldn't have tried otherwise. There's a lot more access now. So,
Not only does it allow more access for the consumers, but hopefully in turn that means the indie developers are getting more views, they're making more money off these things, and in turn can create better products.
right.
And that's what produces this cycle of positive growth in the community. So
Absolutely. And the downside, though, is with more and more avenues, and with Google coming out with their music
yes,
streaming thing, we already feel a little saturated with
yeah,
indies coming out. So I think it's going to be even harder for games to take the spotlight because there's just going to be so many, and there's so many ways to get them now. But it's kind of like with TV shows. You have cable, but then you've got Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. It's just like
hmm
there's so many shows and I can't keep up. It's like the same with games. There's so many.
yeah. That's such a tough thing, and I think that's an exciting opportunity for both you and I in what we're doing and other content creators is that there's so many games, but that's where I feel at least I'm kind of called to with the podcast at times is bringing up these games that may have just been set aside or just kind of flew under the radar, and it's an opportunity to bring some of those up. There are so many games out there that it's hard. I mean, none of us have time to play even a small fraction of the games that
Yeah,
come out. It's like, how can we bring some light to these games that are good but might not be in someone's focus or in their view?
absolutely.
So, to kind of round out the show, what would you say are some indies that you've been playing recently that you just can't get off your mind?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel bad because I already mentioned it, but G30 is still on
Yeah.
my mind.
So, how did you hear about it?
I had a really busy week at work one week, and I knew I wasn't going to have time to sit at home and game. So I was like, all right, I need to have something on the train. I
Mhm.
literally just went into the app store and I saw a little icon with a colorful bird. I was like,
Yeah.
and it said a memory maze. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I'll try that. I had no idea what the game was about going in, and then found myself a little in over my head because I wasn't prepared to deal with that because I'm dealing in real life with someone that has memory loss or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But so I wasn't prepared to explore those emotions on a train full of people.
Yeah. That would come as a shock, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I just need something to like chill out to, and this was the opposite of chilling out. But it was really fascinating, and I really enjoyed the storytelling with that one because as you're putting these puzzles together, these words appear on the screen, and every time you move a piece of the puzzle, words are added or taken away. So the sentence constantly changes its meaning until you find the
Huh.
solution. And it's from the perspective of someone who is dealing with memory loss, which I feel like is something I've never seen before. And I know how I feel about it, but I don't know how that person going through it feels about it. To see that perspective really opens up a whole new world to me. So I've still been thinking about it.
Yeah. That's another thing that's so amazing about I feel like indie games in particular, they're able to explore so many of these different emotional states or different issues like just like what you're saying with memory loss. I mean, how many of us have experienced that like on a real level, and that's a way for people to experience that and hopefully have a better understanding for people around them who might actually be struggling with that issue. And that's a great thing, because the more people can really come to understand what other people are going through instead of just focusing on all of our own problems, like
Right.
that's better for everyone if we're able to be more
Right,
understanding.
and I think it allows you to be more sympathetic and,
Yeah.
you it's so easy and in general, not just with this topic, it's so easy to, like, get frustrated or get mad at someone or whatever, but when you really stop and think about what they're going through, it changes the whole conversation.
As a quick follow-up to this game, what are your current thoughts on mobile gaming? Because that's something that I've realized I mentioned this on the podcast, but I usually try and avoid looking at mobile games, just because in my mind it's like it has a sort of it's like, oh, that's mobile gaming, that's not real gaming. But more and more real games are coming to mobile. I mean, Dead Cells has a mobile port that's supposed to be coming out. Like,
Yeah.
all of these real games are coming to mobile. There's PUBG on mobile and Fortnite. So what are your thoughts on that, especially as someone who blogs and has to think about that sort of thing?
I think I understand the perspective of mobile games aren't real games, but I think not everyone is the same type of gamer. There's people
Yeah.
that do like those, Angry Birds and Bejeweled or whatever those are, Candy Crush. And that's not a game I would play, but it's still a game. And if you play it, you're a gamer.
Yeah.
But I do think there's this really great experience now that on your phone, people that normally wouldn't game are able to do it. For example, Old Man's Journey, I play that on my phone. I didn't even consider putting it on the PlayStation or whatever. And so if I hadn't seen it in the App Store, I don't know if I would have picked it up. And I'm really glad I did because that was another really great story and a great soundtrack too. Bought the vinyl. So I think it definitely opens up the door to people. And what I said before, when people have contacted me that aren't gamers that have picked up games, I've had
Mhm.
people download Gorogoa, for example, which came out on mobile and something that that person probably never would have picked up before, but they did. And then they were like
Yeah.
messaging me about it while they were playing. Like, this is like, what's happening in this scene? I'm like, oh, just keep playing.
You can do it. Just keep going.
Just keep
Yeah.
going. They're like, they were stuck and they're like, how do I get through this one? I'm like, all right, do this, this, and this, and then you go from there. But yeah, I think it's great that games can be on mobile. It gives people more of a chance to play, and people that are like, oh, I don't understand, how people don't understand why we love games so much. They think it's just battle royales or whatever. It's like, no, like pick up your phone, like see, like there's this whole story in the palm of your hand.
I completely agree. I think I've personally had to get over that whole mindset of the stigma of phone games not being real games,
Yeah,
and especially so since so many bigger titles are coming. I agree with what you said about, Candy Crush and all those things. Like, if someone enjoys that and they're having fun with it, that's great, and they are gaming.
yeah.
It's not the same type of game as what you find on the computer or console, but that's still fine. If they enjoy it, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So sorry to kind of like jump in on you talking about games that you've been playing recently. Have there been any others that you just haven't been able to get off your mind?
Well, other than G30, I would say, in a completely different sense, there's three games that I can't stop thinking about. And those would be My Friend Pedro, which isn't out yet, but I tested it at PAX and I can't stop thinking about it.
What about it? Have seen, I think, your stories about it, and
Yeah.
I've seen some screenshots from it, and it looks good. But what about it?
It's just like, all right, so how like Katana Zero, it's just like the action is so badass.
Yes.
So that's another one that's been on my mind. But My Friend Pedro, like the graphics are just insane. The
Really?
story is insane. And it's like you have to you can spin around, you can kick up a frying pan and shoot it with a bullet so that it hits someone in the face.
What?
It's just the more creative you this sounds terrible, but the more creative you are with your kills, the better you're scored at the end of each level.
That's awesome.
So, like, yeah, flipping up tables and then spinning around and pointing both your guns out while you're spinning and shooting everyone around you. You can slow down time. And it's just like this crazy premise where this banana is talking to you, which I'm sure is explained at some point in the game,
Yeah.
but I didn't get there yet. So I'm really looking forward to that one coming out because I played it at PAX and it was just like, oh my god, this thing is so ridiculous. It's like John Wick, but if John Wick talked to a banana.
Oh my word. That game sounds amazing, and I like John Wick, so that sounds even better.
Yeah,
Man,
it's just ridiculous, but I think it's going to be really fun.
cool. And you mentioned Katana Zero. You also wrote an article on Katana Zero recently, didn't
Yeah,
you? What were your thoughts on that?
I really love that game. I went in with zero expectations. I
Yeah.
thought the graphics looked cool, and that's what attracted it.
Hmm.
But then I got in there, and I was just blown away by the story, and it's more than just a fighting game. While the fighting
Hmm.
is very cool, it's got something deeper going on. That being said, though, like 3/4 through the game, I kind of lost track of the story.
Yes. I agree.
But I was able to forgive it because the action is so good. And I think it's so clever. This like VHS 80s like cyberpunk style where you get one shot and that's it. So if you mess up a level, you got to start it all over, which was a huge
Yeah.
off. But it's so rewarding when you do the level, and then it plays back what you did,
Yes.
and you're like, oh my god, I'm so cool.
Yeah, and it does it all in real time, even if you slowed down time. It's like, oh man, I was so cool. It's like another John Wick feeling. You're just like
Absolutely.
watching this stylized action where you are just ripping everything to shreds.
Yeah, it was really great. And I liked that there was a point in the story where you're faced with a decision, and
Yeah.
your decision determines the rest of the game for you. So, I mean, I won't say more because I don't want to spoil it.
You and I had the exact same
We had the same
we talked
experience.
about this, yes. Oh man. We
Yeah,
both did the same thing. Yep.
yeah. And then,
Um y- Sorry, keep going.
oh no, and then just one other game, kind of in the same genre of My Friend Pedro and Katana Zero. There's a game coming out called Blood Roots,
Okay.
and it's got like this guy with a big grizzly beard, like wilderness guy, and basically you're avenging people, or that's probably not the right way to phrase it. You're a big grizzly guy, and something's happened to this character, and
Uh-huh.
basically he's on just a killing spree. So he will use anything around him to kill people. So whether it be an axe or a sword or a carrot or a fish,
A carrot.
he will find a way to use everything. And it's just another one of those just ridiculous action sequences, but somehow satisfying.
Interesting. That sounds awesome.
So be on the lookout for that one. You're going to want to play it.
That's one I hadn't heard about. What's it called again?
Bloodroot.
Blood Roots. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Mackenzie, before we kind of close out, where can people find you? Where can they find your blog and all that sort of stuff? Because I'm sure if someone's listening, they probably want to see your thoughts on a lot of these games you've mentioned. So, where can they find you?
Yes, please find me at Nerdershewrote. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I do have a Twitch account as well, so you can follow Nerdershewrote there. And I will be streaming in just a few weeks. So,
Heck yeah. I'm excited to see how you enjoy it. I have streamed a total of one time in my life back when I was doing back when I was reviewing Cultist Simulator. So this was like last year early on, and it was really fun, but it was like one of the hardest things I've ever done. So I am excited to see how you enjoy it and excited to see your stream.
I'm sure it's going to be hard, but I'm excited to hopefully stream indies that people maybe normally wouldn't pick up, and hopefully they see
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, cool, I want to try that." So I want to do that for people, and also with the whole social media thing, I've been meeting so many great people, and in my Instagram stories, I've been doing like these games. I play with people and stuff, so I would like to bring that over to Twitch and have party nights where we do like a Jackbox party or something, and we can all play Drawful together and stuff like that.
That
So
would be awesome.
even though we're worlds apart, we can be together in this one little Twitch room. Like,
That's sweet.
yeah.
Yes, Mackenzie, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend, which I'm sure is sacred time to you since you're so busy during the week. I will say for all of those of you listening, definitely go check out what Mackenzie's doing at the blog and on social media and all that stuff. Mackenzie is definitely one of those people who has such a great smile and a great presence, lots of positive vibes and positive energy from what you're doing. So I'm excited to see your Twitch account and continue to follow you on there. So thank you so much for joining on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. And just one more thing I think I forgot to mention, my website.
Yeah, please. Yeah, mention that.
Right? People probably want to see that. It's www.nerdershewrote.com.
Yes, definitely go check that out. I will say one thing I liked about your blog is from the articles I've read, they were very succinct, not like super short, but bite-sized
Right.
articles on games to where I could go in, take 5 minutes to read about it, and I wasn't like overloaded, but I got a really good idea of what you enjoyed and what you didn't enjoy in a game. So definitely go check that out.
Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Just
Mhm.
here's the stuff I liked, here's the stuff I didn't like, and then decide for yourself kind of thing. And I try and keep it as conversational as I can within text.
I'm sure that's a difficult thing to try and
Yes.
attain. You seem to be doing a really good job at it.
Well,
So,
thank you.
well, thanks again, Mackenzie. And until next time, we will see you in game.